Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about the top 5 mistakes that you can make when making a custom mechanical keyboard. So, let's say you're just researching a new build and you're trying to figure out exactly what you need to do, and there's all this information out there and you feel a little stuck. Well, hopefully we can help you guys out and maybe save you some time with helping you avoid mistakes that you might make. So, the first mistake that you can make is ordering parts that don't fit together. This is a very common issue. It happens a lot when you're trying to order a PCB for a case and they just don't fit together. It can also happen with, the keycaps, the stabilizers, and the power cable. For the PCB and the case example, sometimes if you try and attach them together, they just barely won't fit, so you'll be stuck there sanding down the case trying to get the PCB to fit, and that's really not a spot you want to be in. I would recommend that you look at several kits online. They usually have the PCB and case together along with the metal plate, so you don't ever have to worry about those not fitting. As far as the keycaps go, sometimes it's possible to order the wrong size. If you're doing like a special keyboard layout and the space bar is a different width, then you have to make sure that you have the right keycap for that situation. I would also look out for the stabilizers as well, because that ties in with the keycaps where they have to be the same size. Another issue is ordering the right power cable. Betty actually did this a couple days ago. She ordered a bunch of power cables and we were going to do some fun stuff with them and try and coil them, and we realized that she actually ordered cell phone chargers. So not enough power for a keyboard, unfortunately, but it was kind of a funny mistake. So you got to make sure you have the right voltage. Moving on to number 2, not having the necessary equipment. Sometimes most of the time I guess, when building custom keyboards, you're going to need to do some soldering, and that requires a lot of equipment, including a soldering iron, a soldering sucker. Make sure you have good air ventilation, so you might need a fan or something like that. You also need the soldering wire and cutter, snippers, and then having a keycap puller is also very useful, and a switch puller can help as well. So having those tools with you will make you just so much more effective when you're trying to build these, and you'll be a lot less frustrating as well. So number 3, got the fingers up there. Number 3, not properly installing the switches. This can be a huge time waster when attempting to assemble a keyboard. So let's say that you're putting down all the switches and you're soldering them to the PCB, and you get to the space bar and you realize you didn't have the right spacing. Well, now you need to go back and remove every single switch, desolder every single switch, and then lift the plate up and then re-solder everything, and that can waste an hour or two just with that alone. So before soldering anything, I would recommend just double checking your key layout plan and making sure the switches are in the right places. That can be a big time saver. The old saying, measure twice, cut once, and that really applies here. So, mistake number 4, not budgeting enough for keycaps, switches, and stabilizers. This mistake is quite common with people who order kits and they think it comes with everything, and it doesn't. And these parts, the keycaps especially, and the switches, they can really add up, depending on the size of your keyboard, but they're definitely not cheap parts, so you need to keep that in mind when picking out your parts. I would usually budget at least $50 to $100 just for those alone. The switches and the keycaps, you can get them cheaper if you need to. You can go ABS plastic for the keycaps, or you can go to like a Chinese knockoff for the switches, like Gaterons instead of cherries. Yep. Alright, number 5. I would say this one's pretty big, and that is not testing your switches before buying. I feel like a lot of people, they see a switch that sounds perfect online, but then they order it, and they order 100 or whatever, spend the time to solder it to the PCB, assemble their entire keyboard, and then realize they hate them. And then they have this fancy new keyboard that they just never want to touch because they hate the way the keys feel, so they move back to their Razer Black Widow or whatever they bought 5 years ago. So I would recommend that you find a way to test them ahead of time. Usually you can buy a kit online and then get like 10 different switches, and then just try swapping it out on your current keyboard and click through them and see which one you like the best. That will save you a lot of time in the future, and probably a lot of money too, because the switches aren't cheap, and having to buy an additional 100 is never fun. So, yep, that's my top 5 for top mistakes that you can make when building a custom keyboard. So, let me know what you think in the comments below, and I appreciate you watching. Have a good day.